Bhakte sraishtyam upayoktihi ashaktasya atmanishtatha tat prakarastvati pritihi bhakte dvadasha uchyate. This is the summary shloka of chapter 12, Bhakti Yoga, from Swami Alavandar's Gita Sangraha. The 12th chapter teaches the superiority of the path of devotion and the means for its adoption. Meditation on Bhagavan is superior to meditation on the individual self. The two methods have their own different ends. The superiority of one goal over the other is not the subject matter of this chapter. The inquiry is regarding which method will fructify sooner. Further, the 12th chapter recommends meditation on the true nature of the self to those who are not competent, who are not qualified to practice bhakti. The chapter details the attributes required of a person intending to practice karma yoga in search of self-realization. Finally, the chapter declares that those who worship Bhagavan exclusively, regarding him as their only and supreme goal, become exceedingly dear to him. When intelligence matures and lodges securely in the mind, it becomes wisdom. When wisdom is integrated with life and issues out in action, it becomes bhakti. Knowledge, when it fully matures, is called bhakti. If it does not get transformed fully into bhakti, such knowledge is useless tinsel. Bhakti is not mere emotionalism. It involves training one's mind and intellect towards pure, continuous, unalloyed love of God. Non-stop or constant contemplation is the very essence of bhakti. It is living a life of prayer where work is worship, where every action has the God principle added. Once upon a time, a rich man who owned 19 horses died. In the will that he left behind, he wanted half the horses he owned to be given to his only son, 1/4 to be donated to the village temple, and 1/5 to be given to his faithful servant. The village elders could not stop scratching their heads. How can they give half of 19 horses to the son, 1/4 of 19 horses to the temple, 1/5 of the 19 to the servant? They were puzzled and were completely lost. Therefore, they decided to seek the help of a wise man from a neighboring village. The wise man came riding on his horse and understood the dilemma of the villagers. He then had all the 19 horses placed in a row, standing next to one another. He added his own horse as the 20th horse. Now he went about giving half of the 20 horses, that is 10 horses, to the son, 1/4 of the 20 horses, 5, to the temple, 1/5 of the 20 horses, that is 4, to the servant. 10 plus 5 plus 4, 19 horses have now been distributed. The remaining 20th horse was anyway his own, which he promptly mounted, spoke a few inspiring words, and rode back home. The villagers were simply dumbfounded, full of disbelief and filled with admiration. And the parting words of the wise man were inscribed in their hearts and minds. The wise man said, in our daily lives, in our daily affairs, simply add God's name and then go about facing the day's happenings. No problems in life are unsurmountable when we constantly take up God's name. Meditate on me as I am the supreme goal and as I am attainable easily and quickly. Meditate on me as the supreme object of your life. I myself will rescue you from the world of bondage, declares Sri Krishna in this chapter. What a glorious declaration. What a reassuring declaration. The Varaha Purana says, Nayami paramam sthanam archiradikatim vina garudaskandamaropya yatecham anivaritaha. A true devotee does not need to practice Ashtanga Yoga to transfer his soul through Archiradi Marga to Vaikuntha. The responsibility is taken over by the Supreme Lord Himself. He comes at once riding on Garuda and at once delivers his devotees from material existence. The Lord becomes the savior to all those who worship Him with exclusive devotion and dedicate all their actions to Him. Why should we dedicate all our actions to the Lord? All the resources of life are God's gift to us. The flowers and the fruits that we can offer to Him in worship are all already His. Whose flowers do we offer to whom? Whose fruits do we offer to whom? If we think we can sing and chant His glories and thus pray to Him, let's remember, even the very air that we have to use to articulate, to chant and sing are all His. The Lord has given us everything, but we have nothing to give Him in return. Even our own individual souls are His property. The only thing that we can offer to Him is the work that we do. If all the work that I do becomes my offering to my God, then my very life becomes a prayer to Him. Lord Krishna is very compassionate. In this chapter, He goes at length trying to help us climb the ladder of spiritual progress. If undivided focus on the Lord, if concentration of mind is not possible, Krishna prescribes the practice of loving remembrance of Lord's glories and then gain steady concentration of mind on the Lord through that loving remembrance. And through that concentration, one should seek the Lord. If we find ourselves incapable of even that remembrance, He then prescribes engagement in acts of worship. Through worship, we gain the capacity for constant remembrance of the Lord and eventually gain the required concentration to reach the Lord. If that worship also is beyond us, then Krishna recommends practice of Karma Yoga, selfless contributory work, which will lead to self-realization and which in turn makes us fit for Bhakti Yoga. Sri Krishna's intent is to give us the roadmap so that we can one day gain the necessary qualification for true Bhakti, a state where our mind is fixed on the Supreme Lord and our remembrance of Him flows like an unbroken stream of oil poured from one vessel to another. The incapacity for bhakti is rooted in the ignorance of the real nature of the individual soul. If that obstacle is removed through Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, the way for the origin and development of bhakti is cleared. The individual is then irresistibly drawn into the full tide of the fervent love of God. In this chapter, Krishna also talks about how a karma yogi makes his progress on the pathway to self-realization and qualifies to practice bhakti yoga as the means for God realization. The path of bhakti is smoother than any other path and also leads us to Bhagavan quicker than any other. It is like a highway or a freeway with no signals, straight to destination, but requires supreme faith in God. To cultivate this, one must necessarily travel all through rugged roads. One must necessarily travel all along side streets with many signals on the way and ultimately join the highway to the destination. This chapter covers the journey to the highway and also highlights the glory of the highway called Bhakti Yoga. Sarvam Sri Krishnarpanastu.